everybody, and welcome back to the Division II Student Athlete Advisory Committee Champions for Life podcast. As we've mentioned a couple of times throughout this series, our hope and goal is to connect with professionals associated with Division II as well as prior Division II athletes to see, where their post-college experience has taken them, what got them to where they are in their career, and, how their experience in college has allowed them to take that next step. And my name is Wiley Cain. I'm currently a junior quarterback at Kentucky Wesleyan College. I'm majoring in biology, pre-medicine. I'm also the chair of the Division II Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And today I'm so pleased to be talking to Jonathan Orr. Jonathan was a football standout for the University of Wisconsin and the Tennessee Titans. He currently serves as the founder and executive director of Athlete Transition Services. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
You are welcome, Wiley, and thank you again for having me on. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. Jonathan recently spoke at the Division II SAAC Super Region Convention in Anaheim, California on transitioning into life after sports and what an identity outside of sports looks like. So today we really just want to talk about a couple of those things for student athletes out there. So Jonathan, my first question for you would be, why is it so important to build yourself outside of your sport?
I think it's really a couple reasons. So in the work that I do, everything we do is focused on preparing for life after sports. And so when you look at elite athletes, elite being college and professional athletes, one of the biggest struggles that they have after sports is this lost sense of identity. And so I think the earlier that a student athlete, really from youth, can start to develop an identity outside of just being an athlete, then we'll see those numbers drop, right? And those challenges that athletes face afterwards. And then I think it's just good just for just overall growth and well-being, along anyone's journey. So.
Yes, and I completely understand where you're coming from. I said junior in the opening, but finals are over. So that means I'm officially a senior and very close to the end of my football career. And it's something that has been a part of my life for 16 years, so long. And I know you spoke a little on this at the Super Region Convention, how hard it was for you to transition out when, you ended up cut by the Tennessee Titans. And I know you said it was hard for you to figure out what to do. And then when you figured this out, helping other athletes figure out what to do after their life, I think that that's such an admirable way you've decided to go with your life. So on that vein, I wanted to ask you, what are your three biggest pieces of advice on building yourself outside of your sport?
So very good question, Wiley. I think part of it is realizing what else you're gifted and talented in. A lot of time as athletes, we've been, sort of in this tunnel for so long, and you've been praised so long for being a great athlete, and sometimes that can kind of skew our vision of ourselves. And other things that we're good at, right? So I think exploring and realizing what our other gifts and talents are. I think it's this thing called what I like to call a core identity. And so this is basically the primary way in which you identify yourself. And the problem a lot of time is our core identity is athlete. And the problem with that is that it's temporary and it's based on performance. So I always encourage athletes to really think about what your core identity is. This is the thing you attach your self-worth, your self-value, your self-respect to, right? Your purpose to. And so, athlete will always be part of our identity, but I would argue that it just should not be the foundation of our identity. So those are two things. And then I think another one is understanding and realizing what else you value, right? In life. Like what are your values outside of just sports and being an athlete? And I think those are three good places to start when it comes to assessing and sort of making sure that you have a pretty solid identity outside of being an athlete.
That is a very interesting answer. It's a great answer. And I think that it segues really well into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was, we always talk about the skills that are built through athletics. And one of the big things we're trying to stress on this podcast is transferable skills, right? Leadership, time management, teammates, working with other people, working with a group, right? There are so many things that athletics teach you, but I kind of want to pivot. I want to look at something maybe you mentioned in that last answer. are there some skills that you can build outside of sports that sometimes maybe for one reason or another might be neglected on the court or field?
And I think interpersonal skills, I think communication is a big one, especially Wiley, maybe you can attest to this, being a football player for so long, sometimes expressing communications and emotions outside of being a macho football player can sometimes be frowned upon. But I think that's been one of the biggest things and biggest challenges, but I feel like I've come a long way with it, is just learning to express and communicate, right? Express emotions and communicate both professionally and doing it in a way that's productive, right? Even in my personal relationships with my wife and just folks that I'm close with, which I think that's a big skill that's oftentimes overlooked, but can pay tremendous dividends as you move through life.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to what you're saying with, being expected to be the big macho football player or whatever. I think a lot of people, with me personally, have learned to see a little bit differently with that, because I like to read. I'm kind of a nerd. I got like the Harry Potter club at the school and all that stuff. But with my teammates, they talk to me about, they're like, it's so hard for me outside of the field to be not okay, which is something that is very topical, unfortunately, right now, with the student athletes that had such a toll taken on their mental health, that we've been hearing about, student athletes, taking their lives and things like that. And one of the big things that the Student Athlete Advisory Committee wants to do is encourage mental health and break the stigma, say it's okay to not be okay. So on that vein, I don't want to talk necessarily about, being not okay and the way to fix that, but how does getting involved outside of sports improve your mental health? How can you say, getting involved in your school or getting involved in your community outside of sports, how have you seen that impact mental health over your career?
Man, I think the importance of that cannot be stressed enough. I think it provides you just an outlet, right? Sports in and of itself can be tremendously, it's a lot of pressure, right? It's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot that it takes out of you. So just to have an outlet to be connected to something else and other people outside of that sort of bubble, it is very beneficial, right? It allows you to sort of decompress. It allows you to get your mind off of things for a while. It allows you to, again, explore and possibly find other interests that you might have, other things that you enjoy, which I think is very beneficial to one's mental health. I hear quite a few therapists, mental health professionals talk about making time for those things that bring you joy, making time for those things you enjoy. And so, yeah, I don't think it can be expressed enough.
And I wanted just to come back to something that you answered a little bit earlier about finding your core values and finding what you're good at. When you talk about decompressing and stuff like that, how did you also, and this is a little curveball, I know, but how did you also find your fulfillment outside of sports? So I know that you talked about, and when I heard you last, you talked about finding fulfillment away from the field, finding fulfillment in something else. And I know that is so important to mental health, is to feeling fulfilled. So how did you get somewhere outside of sports and find fulfillment in something else?
Yes, man. So it was a journey. I wish I could say it all sort of clicked right away, but part of that journey included, I'll never forget, I was in a job, I was miserable after football, and I just asked myself the simple question: what do I enjoy doing? Like what just sort of comes natural to me, am I good at, right? And so it goes back to those gifts and talents. Like what do I just naturally, things that I even do, not necessarily get paid for. And so that led me to pursue a job working with young people, a career path working with young people. And then from there, I realized I had other skills. I really enjoyed developing programs. Part of my responsibility when I worked in the school system was to develop, I was over a grant, and my responsibility was to bring programs and to create programs to make the school district safer for middle school and high school students. And I loved it. And then I said, okay, well, I'm here, and okay, what else do I really care about? And by this time, I had really developed this sort of just compassion, if you will, for helping athletes to figure out this part of their life, that transition. And then I got to a point, I went back to grad school, and then I said, well, I wish there was a way I could converge sort of all of this, where all of this sort of comes together, what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, and then sort of my values. And then the idea came to start this program or organization that would help athletes to prepare for this part of life. And it's been, like you mentioned, it's been extremely fulfilling. And I think because I'm engaging all of those areas of who I am.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer. So, and we're going to be in our last question here. And I just want to ask you, so I'm sitting here, right? My Wiley Cain, senior football player. I'm getting ready to leave school. Talk to me, talk to everyone who's listening to this, who's getting ready to transition out. What is your biggest piece of advice? I know that you've touched on a lot of things throughout this podcast about transition and about mental health and about life after the game. But if you were to look at me right now and say, Wiley, this is my number one piece of advice for you and every other student athlete in the country who's transitioning out of sports, what would you say that would be?
Oh man, Wiley, that's hard, man. That's a good question. Can I give you a 1A and a 1B?
I would love it.
Okay, so one A would be a note from Kobe Bryant's life, which is to prioritize self-exploration. Don't wait until you play your last game to explore those things we talked about. What else you care about? What else you're good at? What else your interests are? Like explore that and pursue paths and start working on things in those areas, so you're not starting from scratch once it's over. So I think that's 1A. I think 1B is to continue to generate and develop game plans. One of the reasons that you're so successful and you've accomplished what you've accomplished is because you have constantly been creating game plans. And by game plans, I simply mean creating goals, right? And then creating a plan to achieve those goals. What happens is after sports, a lot of athletes stop doing that. You should continue it, right? One of the biggest ways to combat anxiety as it pertains to fear of the future and things like that and what's to come is just simply to create a plan. And so I strongly encourage student athletes to continue to do that in your personal life, career goals, educational goals. Just continue to set game plans and go after your goals and set plans. So.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. That's some great advice, and I know I'm definitely going to apply some of that to my life as soon as I get off this recording. But I can't thank you enough for the time. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, we've all learned so much. I know our audience is going to learn so much about it. And to our audience, first of all, I just want to say, check out Jonathan on social media. Check out what he's doing. He's got a really cool book out. He's got a lot of stuff that he's been doing to help athletes transition and to move on. And I'm sure he offered at the Division II Super Region to connect with athletes. If you have questions or if you reach out to him, I know that his corporation, his company is more than willing to help you all out with that. So check him out in all those ways. Jonathan, thank you one more time for being with us, and I will see you guys later.
Thank you, Wiley. Appreciate it.
Be on the lookout for our next episode. It's going to be coming soon. And one thing I want to ask you to drop in the chat, what do you want to do when you get out of college? What is your thing? I'll tell you, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. I want to work with athletes and do the same thing that an orthopedic surgeon one day gave me the ability to reach my goal of being a college athlete. And I want to do that for other people. So that's what I want to do out of college. So in the audience, what do you guys want to do? Just let me know in the comment section below the YouTube. But otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in.